Welcome. In this session, I'm going to discuss about skeletal system. Okay, so this skeletal system is in fact a framework of bones and few cartilages. So framework of bones and few cartilages. Right, so these bones and cartilages are specialized connective tissues. So we have already studied that these are specialized connective tissues, and these specialized connective tissues originate from the mesoderm germinal layer. So the specialized connective tissues, they develop from mesoderm. So they develop from the mesoderm. Okay, so here when we come to the total number of bones in adult human being, so total number of bones in adult human, so we have around 206 bones. So 206 bones are the total number of bones in adult human, so whether it is male or female, plus we have few cartilages, and here actually the number of bones at the time of birth, okay, at birth. So there are around 270, which will reduce to 206 once they become adult. Okay, and here the bone mass reaches to maximum density. It reaches to maximum density at an age of density at an age of 30. Right, now let's see how this skeletal system is classified. So this skeletal system is classified into two parts. The skeletal system is classified into two parts. One is axial skeleton, and another one is appendicular skeleton. Now coming to this axial skeleton, the total bones in this axial skeleton are around 80. There are 80 bones in the axial skeleton, and this axial skeleton includes the following parts. So one, skull, so that consists of 22 bones. So this consists of 22 bones. Then the next one, it also includes the vertebral column. So the vertebral column includes 26 vertebrae. It includes 26 vertebrae. Then it also includes sternum and ribs. We'll discuss about them in the coming sessions. Okay, and coming to this skull, so the skull consists of again two more parts, that is the cranial bones, that will be 8 bones together, and then the facial bones. So these facial bones together, it will be 14 bones. That total the 22 bones. Now coming to this appendicular skeleton. So the appendicular skeleton, it has again two divisions. So one, the limbs. So whether they are forelimbs or hind limbs, so each of that limbs may be having around 30 bones. So they have 30 bones and girdles. So they have limbs and also girdles. So each of this limb will contain around 30 bones. Now first we'll see about this axial skeleton, and then later we'll see about this appendicular skeleton. So let's see the first one, axial skeleton. So as already I mentioned, the total number of bones, the total number of bones in axial skeleton are 80. The total number of bones that are present in the axial skeleton are 80. And the axial skeleton, it consists of, so as I already mentioned, so one, it consists of skull, then it consists of vertebral column, and then it consists of sternum, and it also consists of ribs. Now let us see these parts one by one. So first we shall see about this skull. Now I told you already, the skull is composed of again two more parts. So it consists of cranium, so that is right, the brain box, and then the facial bones. So it consists of the cranial bones and facial bones. Now first we'll see about these cranial bones. Okay, now here the number of bones in cranium. So the number of bones in cranium, they are 8. So you need to remember these numbers. So how many bones and what parts make up the skull. So these are very important. So here number of bones in cranium is 8. Okay, and we know that cranium is a hard protective covering for brain. So I'll just mention here. So cranium is what we call it, the brain box, and this is hard protective covering. It's a hard protective covering for brain. So it protects the brain. So that's the point here. And all the bones in the cranium are joined together by something called sutures. So when you see the skull, so later I will show you the skull, and even I will show you these sutures on them. Okay, so the bones of cranium, the bones of the cranium are joined together by sutures. So they are joined together by sutures, right? So these sutures, whom we classify them under immovable joints, means these are the joints that don't move, they are fixed joints, there is no movement in these joints. So none of your bones that cover the brain will be able to move. So now let us see what are all the the bones that are present in the cranium. So let's see the bones of cranium. So the bones of the cranium, it includes, okay, one occipital bone. So there is an occipital bone, and the number of this occipital bone is 1. Then temporal bones. So coming to these temporal bones, the number of temporal bones are 2. The next one, parietal bones. The next one, parietal bones. So these parietal bones are again 2. The next one we have is a sphenoid bone, and this sphenoid bone is 1. The next coming is ethmoid bone. I'll show you these bones, okay, later in the diagram. Okay, so first we need to know what are all the bones and what their number is. So ethmoid bone is 1, and the next one is the frontal bone, and the frontal bone is also 1. So these are, okay, 6 different types of bones which are present, that make up the cranium here. So total number of bones what we see in case of cranium are 8. Okay, so they are occipital bones, temporal, so there is only one occipital bone, temporal bones, parietal bones, there is one sphenoid bone, one ethmoid, and one frontal bone. Okay, so that totals around 8. Now coming to these facial bones, so what are all those facial bones? We shall see them. So now let's see the facial bones. So the facial bones, okay, are around 14. So there are 14 facial bones. And what are all those bones that are included? We'll see here. There is a vomer bone, and this number of vomer bone is 1. Then there is okay, nasal, okay, concave. So nasal concave, and these are 2 in number. And then there are nasal bones, so these are 2. And we have here is maxilla, so the maxilla will be 2. And then we have is palatine bone, and that is again 2 in number. Then we have is a zygomatic bone, a zygomatic bone, and this zygomatic bone is again 2 in number. And lastly we have a lacrimal bone, and that is 2 in number. So these total around 14 facial bones. So now we shall see the diagram of the skull, and we will point out all these, okay, the cranial bones as well as the facial bones. So here is the picture of the human skull, and we will see the different parts of this human skull. Okay, so in this, so here we'll see first the cranial bones. So already I have mentioned the cranial bones. So what are all those cranial bones? The cranial bones include one occipital bone. So this is the occipital bone. This is the occipital bone. So you can see here, so this is the occipital bone. Okay, right. So and you can see in between different bones there is a zigzag, fashion, right? So attachment of one bone with the another one. So these are actually what we call them the sutures. So these sutures are immovable joints. These are sutures, and they are immovable joints. And you can see here in this case, so this is the occipital bone, and the number of occipital bones is only 1. So one occipital bone. Then coming to the temporal bones. So here, this portion, what you see is the temporal bone. Okay, so this is the temporal bone. And in case of this temporal bones, we have right 2 in number. So you see on this side, okay, on the right side, one temporal bone. On that side, that is left side, you will have one more. Okay, so as you are seeing only on the right side, you may see only one temporal bone on this side. Okay, so the occipital bone 1 and this temporal bones, there will be 2. Then coming the parietal bones will be, okay, again there will be 2 in number, right? So this is the parietal bone. So this one is the parietal bone, and this parietal bone is joined. Okay, so there is one more parietal bone on the left side, so which will be joined again by sutures, and this number is also 2. So these are what I am discussing. They are all the parts of the cranial bones. Next, coming to then another bone that what we call sphenoid bone. So here what you see here is the sphenoid bone. So this is sphenoid bone. Okay, then the another one called ethmoid bone. So here you have ethmoid bone located, okay, so just below the eye. So this is the ethmoid bone. So not the green color one, so some brown color one is that ethmoid bone. So it's called the ethmoid bone. So we have a number of sphenoid bones is only 1, and the ethmoid bone, okay, is also 1. Then coming the next one is the frontal bone, and this frontal bone is also 1 in number. So this is the frontal bone. Is the frontal bone, and this is also 1 in number. So these are the bones that come under the cranium. So the cranial bones together, that will be 8 bones. So you can see 1 2 3, the 4 5 6 7 and 8. So total 8 is the cranial bones. Now let's see even the facial bones. So coming to these facial bones, the number of facial bones are totally 14. So now let's see those facial bones in this case. Okay, so we have here is the maxilla. So this one is maxilla, right? And the number of maxilla bones are 2 in number. So this is maxilla, and its number is 2. Okay, then we have is mandible. So there is one mandible. So the mandible, you can say that maxilla, this is an upper jaw. So this forms the upper jaw. The next one what we see is the mandible. So this is the mandible, and this mandible is lower jaw. So that forms the lower jaw. And coming to this mandible, you have only one mandible. So there is only one mandible. So you will find the teeth on both maxilla as well as right maxilla. So I mean mandible. So here you can see the presence of teeth. So these are right teeth. Right, so I'm not considering the teeth under, okay, these facial bones, okay, nor under the cranial bones. So just I'm showing you that the teeth are present on this maxilla and mandible here. So this whole, the jaw, the lower jaw, that is only one, that is mandible, and whereas maxilla is fused at the center and there are two in number. Right, then we have another one called the zygomatic bone. So this green color one is the zygomatic bone. So this whole part is the zygomatic bone. And this also comes under the facial bones. Of course, I'm talking about only these facial bones. So here their number is 2. The next one we will see about, okay, the nasal bone. So this is the nasal bone. Okay, so here I'll just mention, so this is the nasal bone, and this the number of nasal bones will be 2 in number. And then next one we'll see about the lacrimal bone. So this blue color one is the lacrimal bone. So this is the lacrimal bone. So here the lacrimal bones will be also 2 in number. So they are also 2 in number. Now in this diagram I will be not able to show you the vomer bone, the nasal concave, and even the palatine bone. So this palatine bone, which forms the roof of the oral cavity or the buccal cavity, and you may find this vomer bone below this nasal bone, that we can see it only when we see the skull from the ventral side. Okay, and inside that into the nasal cavities you may find this nasal concave, which it's not possible to show you from this side. So for that reason I'm not showing you here vomer bone, the nasal concave, and the palatine bone. These palatine bones whose number is 2, the nasal concave 2, and even one vomer bone that I'm not showing in this picture. Next, below this mandible we will find one U-shaped bone. So there will be, okay, one U-shaped bone that we will see here, okay, below this mandible, and that is called a hyoid bone. So you may find a U-shaped bone here, and this is what I call it hyoid bone. So this hyoid bone is horseshoe shaped, okay, in that is in shape, that is horseshoe shaped hyoid bone, and this is only one in number. So this is single bone that is present below the mandible. And this hyoid bone is present at the base of the buccal cavity. So here it is present at the base of the buccal cavity, between the larynx and the mandible. And the function of this hyoid bone is to keep the larynx open. And this hyoid bone is also included under the skull. And in each ear, so that is the middle ear, they will have three tiny bones, so whom we call malleus, incus, and stapes. We'll see about them. Okay, before that, I'll just mention here a few more parts. So here, this what you see is an opening here, and this opening is what we call the external auditory, okay, meter. So this is a, it's called external auditory meters. And you see here one small, okay, structure. So this is what I call it a styloid process. So that's called styloid process, and that there will be two in number, right? And now each middle ear will have three tiny bones. We'll see about them. So here in the middle ear, okay, so there are three tiny bones, and these three tiny bones are called the malleus, incus, and stapes. So here these three bones together, we call them ear ossicles. They're called ear ossicles, or also called auditory ossicles. Right, so I'll show you here the picture of these three bones. So here I'm showing you three tiny bones which are present in the middle ear. Okay, so this one is called the malleus. So this is the malleus. So that will be hammer shaped. The next one here at the center is anvil. At the center is anvil, and this is, okay, so it is present in the shape of incus. Okay, I'm sorry, I'll write here incus. So this middle bone is the incus, and this incus is in anvil shape. So it is anvil shaped. Then the last one which you see here, this is the tiny bone, the tiniest or the smallest bone in the entire body, that is the stapes. And this is, we call it stirrup. Okay, so incus is called anvil, malleus is called hammer, and stapes is the stirrup. And we see here this stapes is the smallest bone in human body. Okay, so now some others will include even these three tiny bones or the ear ossicles. So of course here the meaning of ossicles is tiny bone. Okay, so now we have a total number of 22 bones. Now these 22 bones, along with one hyoid bone, Okay, so the total bones in the skull, so skull bones, okay, we have taken as 22, and we even included one hyoid bone. So here plus one hyoid bone, and plus we find here three smallest bones, that is malleus incus and stapes. Okay, so as we have two ears, in each of these ears, in that is in the middle ear you find three, so 3 plus 3, it will be 6. So here you have 6 ear ossicles. So then the total number of, okay, skull bones, it comes to, right, 29. Okay, so the number of the skull bones, that comes to 29 if we include, okay, the 6 ear ossicles and one hyoid bone. Coming to the functions of these ear ossicles. So here the ear ossicles, they help in transmission. So they help in transmission of sound waves into inner ear. And then coming to the function of hyoid bone, so which I just mentioned, that it keeps larynx open. So it will also actually help in tongue movements, help in tongue movements, and also helps in swallowing, and then it keeps the breathing, okay, normal by keeping open the upper airways, that is the larynx, that keeps it open. So it keeps larynx open. So these are, okay, some functions of the hyoid bone. Okay, so and the functions of ear ossicles. So that's all about the skull. Now we will quickly move on to the next part of axial skeleton, that is vertebral column. So let's see the next part of axial skeleton, that is vertebral column. So now coming to this vertebral column, so this is composed of, it's composed of 26, okay, vertebrae. So these vertebrae are serially arranged. So in a moment I will show you the diagram also of this vertebrae. So they are present one above the other. So each one is a vertebra which are present one above the other and form the vertebral column here. So actually these are 33 vertebrae. So actually 33, but a few of them will get fused, and okay, only the one that remains free will be altogether, okay, 26. Along with that fused one, we will have 26 vertebrae. And this vertebral column is located, it is located on dorsal side, it is located on dorsal side of the body. Okay, and this one will be extended, so this one will be extended right from the base of the skull up to the anal region. So from base of the skull to the anal region. So here the spinal cord that emerges out from the skull will pass into this vertebral column. So the vertebral column actually protects the spinal cord. So when we see the skull, from its posterior end, here there is something called the foramen magnum, through which the spinal cord comes out. Okay, and the first vertebra will be in contact with the skull, okay, with the occipital condyles. So here when we see, okay, at the base of the skull, so at the base, okay, so at the base of skull, so we have two occipital condyles, so with which, okay, the first vertebra will be okay, articulating with it. So here the first vertebra, so the first vertebra, right, is called atlas, whereas the second vertebra, we call it axis. So it is this atlas that is in contact with the occipital condyles, in contact with the occipital condyles. Okay, fine. Before we see the vertebral column, here I will show you the foramen magnum and those two occipital condyles, and we see them when we see the skull from the, posterior side. So here is the skull that when we see it from the base, and here you see these blue colored ones. So these are the occipital condyles. So this is one occipital condyle, and this is, okay, another occipital condyle. So there are two, okay, occipital condyles. So for that reason the skull is called dicondylic in case of a human being. So this is a dicondylic skull in case of human beings. Okay, right. And with this, the first vertebra, that is atlas, will articulate with it. Now you can see a center halo structure, right. So this one is what we call the foramen magnum. So you can see here this one, so this large one cavity, okay, I mean opening, actually this is the opening, okay, through which the spinal cord comes out. So this is called the foramen magnum. Okay, right. Of course here you can see this is the roof of the skull, and the roof of the skull is what is it is having the palatine bone. So here you can see this one, so whatever here you see, this is all is the palatine bone. So this is the palatine bone. Okay, right. uh, so that's about the two condyles and the foramen magnum. Now we will see about, okay, the vertebrae and the types of those vertebrae which are present in the vertebral column. So this vertebral column is differentiated into, okay, cervical vertebrae. So cervical vertebrae, and these cervical vertebrae will be total 7 in number. Then the next one will be the thoracic vertebrae. These thoracic vertebrae are total 17 in number. Then the next one are the lumbar vertebrae. Okay, so they are 5 in number. The next one, the sacral vertebrae, there it is one, actually it is a fusion of 5 vertebrae. It is fusion of 5 vertebrae. Okay, and then next one is Coccyx. Okay, so here this is not sacral vertebrae, uh, so it's a sacrum, what we call it. Okay, we have only one. So we have only one, and that is a fusion of 5 vertebrae. And coming to Coccyx, it is also only one, and this is a fusion of 4 vertebrae. It is fusion of 4 vertebrae. This Coccyx is also called tailbone. The Coccyx is also called tailbone. Okay, so if you take this 5 plus 4, okay, and 5, 12, and 7, then you may get around 33 vertebrae, which are actual, but as these are fused, you will get only 26 vertebrae. So that is the vertebral column, okay, that has uh, 26 vertebrae are present. So here coming to this cervical vertebrae, these cervical vertebrae are designated as okay, C1, then C2, then C3, C4, and so up to okay, C7. And coming to these thoracic vertebrae, so they are designated as T1, okay, T2, T3, T4, and up to it goes to T12, whereas the lumbar vertebrae are designated as L1, okay, L2, then L3. So we have L3 and L4 and L5. So these are the lumbar vertebrae, which are 5 in number. Okay, so this is how we designate the cervical, thoracic, lumbar vertebrae, and one sacrum and one coccyx. Now we'll see the diagram of vertebral column. So here is the picture of the vertebral column, and you can see here in this picture you have total the vertebral, cervical vertebrae are 7 in number. So up to here is the cervical vertebrae. The next starts with the thoracic vertebrae, and I told that they will be designated as the T1, T2, and up to T12. So here this is the one where you find okay up to T12. So these are thoracic vertebrae, and then next starts with the lumbar vertebrae that will be designated as L1, L2, and up to L5 you have. Okay, so these are all the thoracic. So above these are all okay the cervical, and these are all the thoracic, and these are all the lumbar, and this comes to the sacrum, and lastly you have is the tail portion, and that is called the coccygeal, that is the tail bone. Okay, which is a fusion of 4 vertebrae, and sacrum, which is a fusion of 5 vertebrae. Okay, so you can see here in between these vertebrae, here there is intervertebral disc. So you can see this is what we call intervertebral disc. Okay, so which helps cushioning here, right? So you can see very clearly in between the vertebrae. Okay, so in the next session I will show you okay or we'll discuss about the structure of one vertebra, and then we'll go to the next part of the actual skeleton, that is the sternum, and even we'll discuss about ribs.